Hi, my name is Claire White. Relational health is one aspect of whole health that I love talking about with people because regardless of your age and stage, you are involved in relationships. There are all different kinds of relationships that all of us are involved in, and they vary depending on the level of intimacy or closeness that we have. So I'm going to describe a few of those today, and I'm going to use some really handy pictures that I have that are a little bit silly, but definitely illustrate the point well. The first type of relationship that I want to talk about is what I generally refer to as coexistence. These are our colleagues, coworkers, maybe distant family members, people who we know and we're around, but we don't necessarily interact with a whole lot, or there's not closeness in the relationship. So we might do the same things in the same places at the same time, but we don't interact a whole lot. We don't share life together. As we draw closer to people and have closer relationships, they're the people who we spend time with. We might enjoy going and doing things together. We probably talk with those people and engage in similar experiences, but there still is not that overlap or that intimacy that we experience in closer relationships. As people draw closer, as you think about those relationships that do involve openness and the sharing of experiences, I think of those as being our more intimate relationships. Those are the ones where our experiences and our lives overlap. There's an intersection. We do things together, but there's also an openness in the way that we communicate. There's trust. We share a lot, practically and also emotionally, with these people that we're in intimate relationships with. Now, there are some characteristics of healthy intimate relationships, and so this first figure, or this first illustration that I use, really depicts a healthy intimate relationship. This is one where both people maintain their sense of self. They do not lose themselves in the relationship. Although two people can share experiences in an intimate relationship, they still maintain their individuality, their separate identities. And what happens as they overlap is there's almost this emergent property. There's this other, almost an entirely new figure that emerges. Now, those in the church, I kind of think of this as the one flesh piece that we sometimes talk about. When two people come together and each maintains their definition of self, their sense of self, their individual selves, then they can overlap in a way that a whole that is greater than the sum of the parts kind of emerges. Now, there are intimate relationships where people tend to lose their sense of selves, and those are going to be the next two relationships that I describe. The first is where one person maintains their boundaries. They stay true to who they are, they maintain their individuality, but the other person becomes kind of an extension. So the second person in the relationship loses their definition of self and maybe loses their viewpoints or opinions, stops asserting themselves, just agrees with the other person. The last one that I'm going to describe is sometimes referred to as enmeshment, but it's where two people come together and lose themselves in the relationship. So these are relationships where you really can't tell the difference between either person and the relationship. The people become the relationship itself, and each person loses their individuality, their sense of self, their definition of self, and the relationship is kind of boundaryless. Now, I definitely appreciate the uniqueness of every relationship. There are some general qualities that characterize healthy, intimate relationships. Now, as I describe these, I want you to keep in mind that each of them should be mutual and reciprocal. They should be shared between the two people involved, and there should be a give and take involved in each of these qualities. So healthy, intimate relationships will generally involve mutual and reciprocal trust, communication, respect, boundaries, and an understanding both of oneself and of the other person. Now, I don't have time in this video to go through each of those, but as you can imagine, each one could be described in great depth. One helpful thing that you can do with this information is to consider the different relationships that you're involved in right now. How healthy are they? How close are you to different people? If there are relationships that you desire to be healthier or people who you want to be closer to, you can look back at those general characteristics and evaluate each of those relationships in terms of those characteristics. Are there certain areas that you could work on individually or even better as a pair? If you want to either improve the health or further a relationship in terms of depth and intimacy, you can look at those characteristics and identify which of those areas it would be helpful to work on individually or together. Coaching people through healthy relationships and communication is one of the things that I'm most passionate about. I have some additional resources on my website for this topic, as well as lots of things related to parenting. So if you want to check those out, it's at clairegoodmanwhite.com. There's also a way that you can reach out to me individually if you have a specific question or would like to talk about this or some other relevant topic further.